Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall here for this evening on January 7th. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We're going to talk a lot about 500 Days and the release of Part 3 this past week, and the continuation now of the series that will be this coming Wednesday, January 11th, of Part 4. We'll definitely be talking about that. We'll do some trivia along the way. I have a little bit of stuff for our show and tell segment as well. So I guess we'll really just jump right into it here. Thank you so much once again. The response to 500 Days, Part 3 has been tremendous. It was a very busy chat room that night. I think we had about 500, 600 people in there at one point. Absolutely tremendous. I think one of the things I really wanted to accomplish with this series is to move the needle with the channel here. I mean, it's been growing very well since 2019, kind of kickstarting this channel again after it had been really idle for a long time, and really trying to find some series or some stories that people would be interested in. I didn't really initially embark on this project with the intent of doing the 2001 Daytona 500. But clearly, once I did the silly season episode, which turned out to be part 1, and expanded upon that, the story just kind of had momentum of its own, and I had to carry into that. And the further along it went into the series, the more nervous I was about exactly how this was going to be received. With part 3, and again, minor spoilers for people who haven't seen it yet, at least in terms of the format of the episode. My original intent was to just do these 3 episodes, and that was it. And in my original version of it, it was exactly the same ending, where right at the moment when the accident happened, it would just cut to black, and that would be it. I've actually seen a couple comments, people that really weren't happy with that ending, and had issue with part 4. Hopefully that'll be cleared up once part 4 does go live. We've had a lot of interest on the Patreon over part 4 here in the meantime, so I know people are definitely interested in the series. I felt if I left the accident in there, or at least just showed the finish line and Darrell Waltrip's call for Mikey to the finish line, I felt it felt off leaving that in there, especially if there was going to be another part to it. As it turned out, I mean, really in both versions, I was leaving it out anyway, because I think it's such a massive sea change. Separated off from the action of the race itself to, of course, what happened in the accident and the response that happened afterwards. I wanted to kind of contain that in its own episode. And so I'm sure that the opinions are split on that. You probably have half that are probably like, okay, it's probably good they didn't show the accident in this one. But there's other ones that are like, well, I mean, I expected this to be a full review of the race. I am of a mind that maybe there are some moments that are so iconic, I could just leave those last like 30 seconds silent, and you could play that in your head, because that clip with Darrell Waltrip calling from the booth has been played so many times. I'm reminded, this may be dating myself here, but I remember seeing Fahrenheit 9/11 years ago when it was covering the September 11th attacks and talking about that. And there's a section in there where it kind of does the same thing. It leads up to the day of, and then the screen goes black, and you just hear the sounds of what was happening during that day, and it doesn't show the images of it, at least not immediately, and it's because everybody can fill that in. That was a similar approach to this. Now, in the next part, of course, it's still going to address it. It will have the accident in there, so definitely a heads up for anybody watching it on there. It's going to go very in depth into everything really from that moment onward, and also just kind of give you, I think it's fair to kind of give a little bit more explanation into what to expect going into the next episode, just so people are prepared. The start of the next episode is going to be very similar to the segment right before the big one happened in episode 3, kind of going back a little bit and recontextualizing what had happened up to that point. There really wasn't room for that in episode 3, certainly with kind of doing the play-by-play and kind of leading up to the moment. So we're going to kind of rewind things a little bit and provide that context, and then kind of lead that right back into that moment and going forward. So hopefully it'll work. The response on Patreon has been very good so far. Thank you so much, everyone who's joined the Patreon here this week. I think this will really bring it together. And if anybody's still concerned about it or took issue with the way episode 3 ended, hopefully by this next Wednesday. That's why I wanted to really make sure these were all on consecutive weeks so everybody could see part 4 that wants to see it. I perfectly understand people that don't want to see it. It was difficult to put together. I can only imagine watching it at the same time there too. So, but that's kind of where we are with that. So I'm glad that it was able to be completed in time. I actually just today uploaded another version of it. Our buddy Brian Hallman at the BRH Racing Archives provided some excellent photos for it. I've actually done like 2 updates to the video since it was first posted in the Patreon. It's basically it's the same